service, but there's a few things I wanted to say. One, there's a Psalm 91. He that dwelleth in the shelter of the Almighty rests under the shadow of God. And I think about Richard, and you say, okay, Paul, what does all that mean? Well, if you're standing here with a pea shooter and the enemy was 4,000 people standing behind you, that's pretty intimidating. But if you're standing down with maybe 700 regiments of soldiers behind you with tanks and everything, and you're standing there, it's a whole different situation. And the question for Richard is, what's the proof of that? He shot out of the sky 4 times in Vietnam. One time was the only one to come back. Earned 6 Bronze Stars based on military records. You just think about that. You know, that song goes on later to say, 1,000 will fall by your side, 10,000 will be there laying next to you, but it won't come nigh you. And that certainly is Richard's life. Many times he was the only one to come back. Resilience. Richard kind of lived his life in the moment. He didn't really plan for later on. Towards the end, that kind of caught up with him. And so God provided us. We came in to help him. We got him his, disabilities and his income so that he could live, the last 2 years of his life in peace. And he did. He had peace in the last 2 years. But I always felt the need to look after him. I wanted him to be able to go off in his boat and just wave at me. Before he died, the night before he died, I went in to see him the last time there was any cognizant recognition. He'd been sick, he rolled over, he looked at me, he recognized me, and he went like this. That was the last time we talked. He couldn't talk, his vocal cords were gone, so he couldn't talk anyway, so he just waved. We just had that kind of relationship. I can remember taking him deer hunting one time, and it's freezing cold, and he just wanted to go deer hunting. He's frustrated to no end. He goes, we've been sitting here all day, we haven't seen a deer. I said, do you really want to see a deer? I'll take you to see a deer. He goes, really? You know where there's a deer? I said, yes, I know exactly where there's a deer. Get in the car and I'll take you there. So I took him to Huron Road, exit on the freeway, because the deer were smart. They knew where they could get food without getting shot at. And sure enough, right off down the way, where it's like 20 deer sitting there grazing. He goes, I want to get my shotgun out. I want to go back in there. I said, first off, you said you wanted to see deer. You didn't want to shoot them. Because if you wanted to shoot them, I wouldn't have brought you here. Well, that was Richard. And, there's a comical side to him. But at the same time, he put everything into right now. And he didn't plan for later. But I know he had a relationship with God, and he had an interesting relationship, because when things would go wrong, he would look up and he'd say, you're pissing me off, God. And he just had this perception and knowledge. He knew where he was at with God. He knew where he was at. He had a faith. And he built on that to his very last day. And we wish him every happiness. I've eaten up all my time, but if it's possible, I'd like to close with a prayer. And so if you just bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for all the things you give us. All the things you've given Richard. We pray that you would bless him in his new life. And that you would bless all the people here and their families. Help us to be safe, and help us to grow closer to you. We ask this prayer